He left her, the woman who built him, for someone prettier, safer, and easier to control. Until the day he walked into a billionaire's gala and saw her standing next to the one man he'd always wanted to impress, and the whole room realized she was never the one left behind.
He was. But this isn't just a story about jealousy.
It's about quiet revenge, legacy, and what happens when the woman you erased comes back not to fight, but to lead.
From where are you watching this?
Drop your city in the comments. And if you believe in stories where the underestimated woman rises to power, hit that subscribe button now. Because the twist you're about to witness will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about loyalty, love, and who truly wins in the end.
You said you'd never look back. But you did, Eli.
You looked back the moment you saw him standing next to me.
It wasn't the divorce that broke her. It was the silence.
The kind that follows after years of being the first one up and the last one to sleep, after packing his bags for business trips she was never invited on, after loving a man who turned cold the moment she no longer fit the image he wanted the world to see. Immani Brooks had given Eli Monroe everything. Her brilliance, her backbone, and the stability he built his tech empire on.
She never needed to shine in public. She only needed to matter behind the scenes. But somehow, that became her crime. Eli didn't leave because Immani failed him. He left because she reminded him of the struggle. Because she saw him before the suits, before the speaking tours, before the company IPO. And when you build your image on reinvention, the last thing you want is someone who remembers your beginning, especially if she's a black woman who holds her head too high for the world you're trying to impress. And so he left. For Chloe Hartman, the girl next door turned polished executive. She was everything Immani wasn't on paper: soft-toned, camera-ready, Ivy League, and safe. Eli framed it as closure, said Chloe had always been unfinished business. But the truth was simpler. He didn't want love. He wanted optics. The papers were signed. The home was sold. The silence between them became permanent. Immani didn't beg. She didn't protest.
She just watched him walk away with the same woman who once told her, "You're too much woman for a man like Eli."
Maybe she was right.
But even Chloe couldn't fill the space Immani left behind, because that space wasn't made of softness. It was made of steel. And Eli only realized it when it was too late. That realization came 1 year later. The night Eli walked into a private gala, Chloe on his arm, cameras waiting, and saw Immani stepping out of a black car in a red satin gown, her hand gently placed on the arm of Donovan Blake.
A billionaire. A man Eli once tried to pitch. But Donovan wasn't watching the crowd. He was watching Immani.
And when she smiled, not at Eli, not in spite of him, but past him, Eli's breath caught. For the first time, he understood what it felt like to be forgotten. The woman he'd erased was now unforgettable.
But this isn't where the story ends. This is where it begins.
Because what started as a clean break was about to become a slow, brutal unraveling.
Eli thought Immani would fade.
He truly believed that once the ink dried on the divorce papers, she would dissolve into memory, a quiet footnote in his success story.
He didn't expect her to land on her feet. He didn't expect her to stand tall. And he definitely didn't expect her to glow. But that's exactly what she did.
In the months after the divorce, Immani Brooks didn't chase closure.
She chased clarity.
She moved back into the West End apartment she once bought on her own, before she ever became Mrs. Monroe.
The furniture was old. The view was small. But the space?
It was hers.
She started over.
She reactivated the consulting business she shelved during Eli's climb, contacted former clients, rebuilt relationships, not with the desperate energy of someone trying to prove something, but with the quiet confidence of someone who never needed permission in the first place. Meanwhile, Eli and Chloe became the face of reunited success.
Brunch interviews.
Lifestyle features.
Social media photo ops.
Every smile staged. Every laugh calculated. But behind the velvet curtains, Chloe began to feel it. That shadow. Immani's name started resurfacing in small circles, boardrooms, boutique grant foundations, venture capital meetups. People admired her poise.
Her ideas. Her calm strength.
Even worse, Chloe saw it in Eli's eyes. That flicker of discomfort every time someone said, "Didn't your ex-wife help build your first round of funding?"
That pause before he changed the subject.
At first, Chloe brushed it off. But then came the moment she couldn't ignore. They were attending a tech founders mixer, low-key, invite-only. Eli was networking, Chloe sipping wine by the art wall. That's when she overheard it. "You know Donovan Blake's working with someone new, Smart strategist. Think her name's Immani Brooks.
The wine nearly slipped from Chloe's hand. Donovan Blake wasn't just a billionaire. He was respected. And he didn't work with people lightly.
The next morning, Chloe casually brought it up at breakfast. Eli froze, then cleared his throat. I heard, he said. It's just business. But Chloe could see it, in the tightness of his jaw. The way he stirred his coffee faster than usual.
It wasn't just business.
It was the beginning of a shift. Because while Chloe had helped Eli clean his image, it was Immani who built the substance. And that substance was coming back to claim its space. Eli tried to ignore it, tried to brush it off. But then the gala invitation arrived. From Donovan Blake's foundation. And on the embossed card, in silver ink, were 4 words that hit him like a knife. Hosted by Immani Brooks.
He didn't tell Chloe right away. He didn't even RSVP.
Because for the first time since he walked away, Eli felt something he hadn't expected to feel toward Immani.
Fear.
Not fear of confrontation.
Fear of comparison. Because deep down, he knew. He hadn't left Immani for something better. He had just left too soon. The gala was elegance distilled into one night. Floor-to-ceiling glass, soft blue lighting, violins floating through the air. It wasn't just an event. It was a statement. And at the center of it stood Immani Brooks, draped in deep crimson silk, her hair styled like a crown, her presence electric. She didn't come to prove anything. She came to own everything.
As guests arrived, murmurs followed her, not out of scandal, but respect.
People noticed.
People remembered. And most importantly, people listened. Meanwhile, Eli Monroe entered with Chloe Hartman on his arm, both dressed to perfection. But perfection couldn't stop what was already unraveling. Eli saw Immani the moment they stepped in, not because she was loud, but because the room shifted when she moved. Chloe followed his gaze and instantly felt the cold twist in her stomach. She's glowing, Chloe muttered under her breath.
Eli didn't respond. He couldn't.
He was too busy watching the way Donovan Blake leaned toward Immani, smiling like he'd known her soul for years.
It wasn't flirtation. It was alignment. And that made it worse.
Because Eli knew Donovan, admired him, pitched him once, got turned down.
And now Donovan was giving Immani the space Eli never did. The speeches began.
Donovan took the stage first, delivering a message about innovation, inclusivity, and building legacy.
Then came the twist.
Tonight, Donovan announced, I'm proud to introduce the co-founder and strategic mind behind our newest venture, someone who exemplifies vision, grace, and power. Please welcome, Immani Brooks.
Gasps rippled. Eli's hand clenched. Chloe's breath caught. Immani stepped forward. No nerves. Just clarity. She didn't gloat. She didn't grandstand.
She simply spoke, about women being silenced in boardrooms, about loyalty mistaken for servitude, about the quiet ways Black women are written out of the narratives they built.
Her final line?
Sometimes, being underestimated is the greatest gift. Because it gives you time to rebuild in peace, and return with power.
The applause was thunderous. But the twist wasn't over.
As the crowd settled, Donovan added, there's one more note. In partnership with Monroe Tech, this initiative will receive a multimillion-dollar fund, under a clause that grants full strategic oversight to Ms. Brooks.
Eli blinked.
What?
The crowd turned. Donovan continued.
You signed the agreement months ago, Mr. Monroe, back when the foundation's beneficiary was still unnamed. We simply updated the name.
Eli's jaw locked. He'd been checkmated by his own signature.
Chloe whispered, You gave her control?
No, he hissed.
I didn't know it was her. But now you do.
And everyone else did too.
Eli sat frozen, applause ringing in his ears, as Immani stepped off the stage, walking past him, not with hate, not with vengeance, but with freedom.
That's what destroyed him most. Because she didn't want him back.
She didn't even need him to see her. She needed the world to, and now it finally did. The morning after the gala, Eli didn't wake up feeling victorious.
He woke up feeling erased.
The headlines hit like daggers. Immani Brooks named co-strategist for Blake Global Initiative. Monroe Tech's surprise power shift raises eyebrows. Black excellence on full display as Brooks outshines her past.
And Eli?
Buried beneath every headline, every photo, every whisper. His phone buzzed endlessly. Colleagues asking questions, clients requesting clarification, investors wanting assurance.
But none of them were really asking about business. They were all asking about her.
Chloe watched him spiral from across their marble kitchen island. The same man who once gave speeches about controlling the narrative now sat in silence, scrolling, eyes hollow.
"You're obsessed with her," she finally said. Eli looked up, startled.
"What?"
"You haven't looked at me since the gala. You haven't said one word to defend me or us.
You let her humiliate us."
"She didn't humiliate anyone," Eli said quietly.
"She just stepped into what was already hers."
Chloe's voice cracked.
"You still love her, don't you?"
Eli didn't answer. Because the answer was yes. But it wasn't love the way he remembered it. It was loss.
The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that crawls into your mind late at night and reminds you of what you abandoned. Not for something better, but for something easier.
Meanwhile, Immani wasn't watching the headlines. She was leading them.
She'd spent years being invisible. Now, every room she entered paused. Every word she spoke carried weight.
Donovan didn't speak for her. He stood beside her. As a partner. As an equal.
Their working relationship became the blueprint for equity.
Yet, Immani wasn't out for revenge. She was out for restoration. But Eli couldn't accept that.
He couldn't accept that she'd moved on without the need to destroy him, because it meant he no longer mattered in her story.
So he started interfering.
He accidentally showed up to events where he knew she'd be. He sent her vague emails under the guise of professional feedback. He even offered to revisit old IP agreements from her consulting days, a weak attempt to reclaim some thread of control.
Immani ignored every attempt. Until Chloe crossed the line.
A leaked article appeared on a fringe site. Immani Brooks, repackaged, rebranded, but not so innocent. It referenced her divorce, her financial history, and subtly implied she leveraged Donovan's interest for gain.
Immani wasn't surprised. She was disappointed. She forwarded it to her legal team.
2 days later, Chloe's PR firm received a cease and desist letter. Donovan issued a public statement reaffirming Immani's role and integrity.
The article was pulled. But the damage?
It wasn't to Immani.
It was to Chloe.
Because for the first time, Eli looked at her not with affection, but with contempt. "You just proved why she'll always be better than you," he said coldly.
That night, Chloe packed a bag.
But before she left, she said the one thing Eli never wanted to hear. "You didn't lose her at the gala. You lost her the moment you stopped seeing her and started chasing yourself."
And she was right.
Because Immani wasn't chasing validation.
She was building an empire. And Eli? He was finally watching it, from the outside. The meeting wasn't planned. Not by Immani, at least. She walked into the boardroom expecting routine, quarterly projections, impact assessments, upcoming initiatives for Blake Global. But when she opened the glass doors, he was already sitting there. Eli Monroe. Alone. No assistant. No Chloe. No entourage. Just a man unraveling behind polished clothing. Immani paused at the doorway. Her expression? Calm. Regal. Detached.
"Is this a joke?" she asked, directing her words to Donovan, seated at the end of the table. Donovan didn't flinch.
He requested 15 minutes.
"I told him it was up to you."
Eli stood slowly. "Please.
I need to speak with you." Immani sat, not out of kindness, but control. "You have 10. Eli swallowed hard, trying to gather words that wouldn't come. "I made a mistake."
Immani didn't blink.
"You made a decision." "I chose what I thought was best for me," he said, voice cracking.
"But it wasn't. It was safe. Predictable. Hollow.
And I've been hollow ever since."
There it was.
The confession. The admission of what she already knew.
But Immani didn't lean in. She didn't soften.
Because the cost of that clarity had been her silence, her sleepless nights, her rebuilding, alone.
"I didn't come here for your apology," she said. "I didn't even ask for this meeting."
Eli stepped closer, desperation showing in his shoulders. "I just want to know, is there a version of us that still exists? Even as friends? Even as?"
She cut him off. "You didn't lose me because you chose someone else. You lost me when you stopped choosing yourself, the man I believed in. The man who used to stand for something." Eli lowered his gaze. "I see you now." She shook her head. "No, Eli.
You see what I became without you."
The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was final.
And then Donovan spoke, his voice smooth, not unkind, but firm. We have a full schedule today. If there's nothing further. Eli turned, defeated, and walked toward the door. But before he left, Immani spoke one last time.
I don't hate you. He turned back, eyes hopeful. I outgrew you. His face dropped.
She smiled gently, not out of pettiness, but closure. I just hope one day, you do the same. Eli nodded, broken but quiet. And then he left, the same way he walked out of their marriage, not knowing it would be the last time she'd ever look back. When the door clicked shut, Donovan looked at her. You're right.
Immani nodded.
I'm not angry. What are you, then? She looked out the window, into the city she once feared would forget her.
I'm finally whole.
The sun filtered gently through the towering windows of Blake Global's new headquarters, a space designed not just for status, but for impact. Photos lined the lobby. Young girls in coding workshops, scholarship recipients holding diplomas, single mothers stepping into entrepreneurship, all under one name.
Immani Brooks Initiative. She hadn't asked for the spotlight.
But once it found her, she used it to illuminate others. A year had passed since the confrontation with Eli. And not once had she felt the need to revisit it.
Because healing, she realized, wasn't about closure. It was about elevation.
Immani had spent her life being everything for everyone. Wife, partner, support system, visionary behind the curtain.
But now?
She was front and center, not for applause, but for purpose. She no longer measured her worth by anyone's title or attention.
She measured it by the impact her name now carried. Meanwhile, Eli had all but vanished from headlines.
Monroe Tech merged quietly with another firm. Chloe had left long ago, her silence louder than any article. Eli now taught part-time at a business school, a man humbled by the wreckage of his own decisions. He told stories about the value of vision, but never mentioned Immani by name.
He didn't have to. Everyone knew who she was.
One evening, Immani hosted a private event at a youth center funded through her foundation.
No red carpets. No press.
Just warmth, laughter, and real stories. In a quiet moment, she stood beside Donovan Blake, both sipping tea, watching two girls excitedly show off their digital art project. You ever miss it? Donovan asked. Miss what? The need to be seen. To be chosen.
Immani smiled. No. Because now, I choose myself.
Every single time. He nodded, respect evident.
No flirtation. No fantasy. Just two people aligned in purpose.
Before she left, one of the girls approached her. Ms. Brooks, how did you get here? Immani crouched to eye level. I stopped waiting for permission. And I started building without apology. The girl beamed, and in that moment, a new legacy began.
Not one tied to heartbreak. Not one built on revenge.
But one born from survival, rebuilt with vision, and finished with power. As Immani walked back toward her car, city lights flickering like stars beneath her heels, she didn't look back.
She didn't need to.
Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from pain.
She was walking in purpose.
Your likes and subscriptions push us to keep telling real stories, not the ones filtered through fantasy, but the ones that mirror pain, power, and poetic justice. So hit that like button, share this with someone who's ever been underestimated, and subscribe to stay tapped into narratives that don't just entertain, they empower. And here's a question we really want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been replaced, only to come back stronger than ever?
Tell us what that moment felt like.
Or better yet, what it looked like when they finally saw your worth.